Does that mean stop? What does that mean? Oh, that means I can go. Oh, sorry. Sorry about that.
I try and just... Yeah,
I don't have my pass
don't worry,
again.
I need to adjust your name again, yeah.
Mark Nickel.
Mark. Okay, Mark, thank you very much.
Thanks, mate. I'll definitely wear it next time.
Yeah.
Hi guys, welcome to YouTube. So what you've just seen is me in Barcelona on the wrong side of the car driving the new Nissan Juke. I'll not keep you too long with this preamble, but there are a few things that you need to know before we go back into the car for driving impressions. So you can order a new Juke now, priced from just over £17,000. And although there are lots of trims, because that's what Nissan likes to do, to bamboozle people in the showrooms, for the foreseeable future there will only be one engine. It is a 3-cylinder petrol turbo, and you can have it with either a 6-speed manual or a new 7-speed twin clutch automatic. And just to remind you, if you need it, this car replaces the aesthetic monstrosity that was the very first Nissan Juke. Now that car's been around since 2010, and already it is a bona fide icon. Pig ugly it most certainly is, but it also started the whole B segment compact crossover thing, and Nissan, believe it or not, has sold 1.5 million of them. Now, it was never really that good anyway, but having spawned an entire genre of car, there are now lots of rivals, and the vast majority of them are much better in pretty much every way. And so Nissan has made this Juke bigger in every direction, so it's got more cabin space, especially in the rear. At the same time, Nissan's made it lighter, so it's more fuel efficient, and the company claims it's better to drive. Well, we'll find out. Off we'll go back to me in the car.
Okay, so I'm just going to get right down to it, and I'm going to tell you that this is a million times better than the last Juke. Now that's not really saying much, because the last Juke was rubbish. In fairness to Nissan, right, in the press conference yesterday, a bloke from Nissan said that there were 3 things that they'd identified with the last car that they knew they had to improve. First one, space, not good enough. Second one, interior quality, also not good enough. Third one, 1.6 engine, not good enough. What I can tell you right off the bat is that the first 2 of those things they've improved dramatically, and it has had a transformative effect on this car. So it's noticeably bigger and the quality is very definitely better, and that instantly just makes it a much nicer place to be than the last Juke. Now unfortunately, the engine, the one engine that you can get with this car, at launch anyway, 3-cylinder turbo petrol, right, has all the ingredients to be a corker. It isn't. It just doesn't have enough power. We'll come back to that though, and we'll talk about the good stuff first, right? The last Juke just felt really cramped and really plasticky. It was a car that was first and foremost a design statement, really, and everything else seemed to come after that. So all the plastics were scratchy, and there was hardly any rear seat space, and the driving position was terrible, and the boot was tiny. This one, all that sorted out. Cabin's really lovely. I mean, it's still hard plastics and stuff, but there is some nice textured stuff here. The infotainment looks really nice. I'll be honest, I haven't really had a chance to fiddle around with it much, but it all seems pretty clear. More importantly than the aesthetic stuff and, you know, the pressing on the dashboard stuff, is the fact that it's just got a really nice driving position, and they haven't compromised visibility. You do feel like you sit a little bit lower down into this car, so you will find a comfortable driving position in this, no problem. There's loads of reach and height adjustment for the wheel, and even behind me, 6'4" me, there is still a canny amount of leg room behind. There is physically more leg room. They've lengthened the wheelbase and given some of that over to rear leg space, but they've also lowered the rear seats a bit, so you get a feeling of head space there, and that was a big problem for the last car. It felt really cramped in the back. The boot's really good, so by literage it's like 20% bigger or something, and you can tell straight away, but also it's got a twin floor, and the gap underneath the loading floor when you put it up to its higher level is substantial. I dare say that like a Seat Arona or a Volkswagen T-Cross, Citroen C3 Aircross, they're cars that you probably could use as a day-to-day family car if you had a couple of smaller kids. That was never something you could say about the Juke, but it is now. And then little things, substantial door pockets with a moulding so you can put a big bottle in there. Glove box is massive, this storage box is okay. I mean, it's just like a well thought out car now, you know? So what's it like to drive then? Well, it's infinitely better than the outgoing Juke. That's another area where they've really improved it. They've clearly set this up for comfort. They've clearly set it up because they know that this is the car that, you know, your mum buys. It's not a car that you're going to want to throw into a corner. It's not a car that you're necessarily going to get a lot of fun driving, but it does give you the right sort of enjoyment because it's clearly going to be a comfortable car day to day. Now I have to caveat that, as usual, I'm in Spain, we're on some amazing roads, most of them are glassy smooth, so I can't tell you at this stage how this car is going to behave exactly in the UK, right? I must say that one or two people on the event here have complained about the way this car rides, but I think it's okay. They've set it up quite softly. My only real concern is that it seems to have that underlying rumble from big wheels, and it's possible that if you are buying a top spec one of these, you're going to get that underlying harshness that you get with big wheels and thinner tyres. I know that's the case with any car. You can put any car on massive wheels and sort of ruin the ride quality a bit, but some cars seem to suffer from that effect more than others, and I think this might be one of them. Generally though, I don't think anybody's going to have any complaints about the way this rides. So we've been over a few speed humps, it seems to deal with them really well. It's not sending anything really harsh up through the cabin. And the steering, right? So if you want to talk fun to drive, the steering has no feel whatsoever, and it's actually quite slow. It's quite a slow steering rack. It's very tempting for a car company to make a steering rack really quick to make the car feel darty or sporty. Haven't done that here. They've just made it nice and light, nice and stable. It doesn't ever make the car feel twitchy, and that's cool, right? And that's the overarching story of this car, that in all the right areas, bar one, which we'll come to, it's been improved. Now that one thing is the engine and the gearbox.
Yeah, I know, that's two things. I'm improvising, man.
As it stands, you can only have this car with this one 3-cylinder turbo petrol engine. 3-cylinder turbo petrol engines are generally brilliant, right? Loads of character, they sound really good, you get that big surge of torque in the mid-range from the turbo. Just far more interesting than a diesel engine or even like a 4-cylinder petrol engine. But for some reason, right, Nissan seems to have engineered out all of the character of this car, so it means that it's really smooth, right? It's really quiet at low revs, doesn't create too much noise, right? But then when you accelerate, when you go into the higher end of the rev range, instead of giving you that lovely sort of throaty sound that you generally get with a 3-pot engine, it just sounds a bit harsh and awful. But actually the main problem it has is it's just too slow. There will be other engines, I'm sure. There'll probably be a Nismo version of this, like a fast one. There might even be a hybrid or possibly even an electric. But for now, it's really disappointing that this is the only engine you can get. It really struggles on the motorway, any sort of incline on the motorway, and it's like foot flat on the floor stuff. This is the manual I'm driving. I spent this morning driving the twin clutch automatic. Now it is a lot better than the old CVT that you got in the last Juke, which was horrible, right? All whiny and you know what CVTs are like, they're minging. But it doesn't suit the engine or the car at all. It's always hunting for gear. It's like a twin clutch gearbox after it's had half a bottle of wine or something. It's just dead lazy. So that's a two-edged sword, right? It's disappointing because it doesn't feel snappy like a twin clutch should, like your expectation of a twin clutch is. On the other hand, it feels like an old school slush box. So again, if you're just pootling around really slowly, it's actually very smooth. Like the engine, you have to sort of shift your expectation of what it should be to enjoy it, if that makes sense. And that's why, as I sit here, I'd probably recommend the manual. Generally for cars like this that are just going around the doors and that you're going to end up stuck in a lot of like inner city traffic jams in, I would say get the automatic, especially if on paper it's a twin clutcher and it looks like a really good automatic. But here, I think this manual is probably better because it just feels nicer. Any other problems? Oh yes, there's quite a lot of wind noise. The wing mirrors are massive. So when you're on the motorway, you can really hear them whistling. That's definitely a problem. You get up to 70 and actually one of the main things that you hear isn't the engine or the tires, it's the wind whistling over the wing mirrors. It's something that you feel like Nissan could have just done a better job with.
Quick interjection. So right after I did this driving sequence, I then went and spoke to an engineer from Nissan. I think he was in charge of rubber or something. Now he said that the wind noise thing is a known issue and that the cars that go into the showroom are going to have an improved rubber seal between the window and the door frame. Whether that makes a difference, time will tell, but as I stand here, that can only be a good thing because the wind noise was pretty bad. So there you go, back to the car.
The main question is this a class leader? And the answer for me is no, it's not, but the Juke has now become a car that you can actually recommend as a viable alternative, which it never was before. It's gone from being like cramped and cheap and ugly, frankly, to being much better quality, much more spacious, and generally just more pleasant. And the looks aren't as divisive either, which I think will make a difference and probably get it a few more sales. I still prefer the Arona, still prefer the T-Cross. I just think they're a little bit better to drive. I think the quality is actually a little bit better on those things, but I would have no hesitation in recommending this to somebody, especially as it's knocked together by the Mackems down the road. Get in.
Okay, so you're still here. Thanks for watching and thanks for sticking with all that. I do plan on getting a Juke over here so I can do a proper British road test and then we'll see whether the ride quality really is that good on our disgraceful roads. In the meantime, please watch our other stuff. It's got more jokes in it than this had. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already and tell your friends and your enemies to do that too. And I'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.